Chioma, what have you done? You knew that man belonged to your sister. What kind of a person are you? Chioma folded her arms. I don't know why you people are seeing this thing like this. Eh? Did I tie him with a rope? Did I force him? Oba wanted me just like all the other men. He could not resist me, Mama. It's not my fault that her so-called man does not find her attractive. Ugoma's anger fled like fire. Without thinking, she raised her hands and her palm connected with Chioma's cheeks in a resounding slap that echoed across the compound. Chioma staggered, her hand flying to her face in shock, her ears ringing as if 1,000 bells were in there. You are a disgrace to yourself and this family. You are heartless, Chioma. You are very heartless, and you will reap the reward of this wicked seed that you have planted. Mark my words. Once upon a time, in a beautiful, lush and peaceful African village named Amiye, bothered by a breathtaking forest where all kinds of animals roamed free. A village where children made the shade of the big udala tree their playground. In Amiye, young maidens blossomed like the hibiscus flower, their beauty undeniable, their laughter like the soft ripple of a stream. They took pride in their elegance, sashaying through the village paths with colorful wrappers tied firmly around their waists, beads jingling around their necks. Their sole ambition, aside from perfecting their dance steps and making the best soups, was to catch the eye of a worthy suitor. But Amiye held fast to a sacred tradition. No younger sister could marry before her elder, no matter how many suitors came knocking. It was an unspoken rule, deeply ingrained in their way of life. And so, in the household of Nze Okonkwo, a well-respected and somewhat wealthy man, lived two beautiful sisters, Chioma and Oluebube. Chioma, the eldest, was the embodiment of grace and elegance. She was beautiful beyond words, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that sparkled like the morning dew. But there was one problem. Chioma was impossibly proud. She knew she was beautiful, and she carried herself like a queen among mortals. From the time she was a girl, men started to line up to ask for her hand in marriage. Farmers, hunters, traders, warriors. Amiye and the neighboring villages had no shortage of fine young men. But even as Chioma grew older, none of them were good enough. She always had the reason to reject a suitor. He was either not handsome at all or not handsome enough. He was too short, too tall, pot-bellied, did not have enough money. The list was endless. Chioma always had a good reason why a man was not good for her. Her mother, Ugoma, had tolerated her daughter's arrogance for seasons, hoping she would grow out of it. But as time passed and the marriage proposals kept rolling in, only to be dismissed with a wave of the hand, Ugoma knew it was time to have a serious talk with Chioma. One evening, just as the sun began to set, Ugoma sat her daughter down. "Chioma," she began, her voice calm but firm. "Why do you reject every suitor that comes for you? A woman does not keep beauty forever, my daughter. The flower that refuses to be plucked will one day wither and fall to the ground." "Mother," Chioma began, spreading her shoulders proudly, "those men are not my type of men. A girl as beautiful as I am cannot settle for just any kind of man. Chioma, her mother put in. There are a lot of respectable men who have come to ask for your hand. Why not bring yourself down and settle for one of them? Look at Amadi, Maziobina's son. Ha, mother, Chioma interrupted. Amadi with his pot belly, to fiakwa, she exclaimed, throwing her hands over her head. Okay, her mother continued. What of Obiora the fisherman? He is doing well enough for himself. He can take care of a woman. Here, mother, a whole me should marry Obiora. Eh? He's not bad though, but a fisherman, so that my body will be tainted with the horrible smell of fish. I reject it, mother. Ugoma shook her head. Fine. How about Ikediora? Yay! Chioma exclaimed, clapping her hands together. That short man. Mother, you don't even value me at all, because how am I supposed to be with a man like that? Chioma, you have suffered. Ta! Shut up your mouth, her mother scolded. Since of all the hundreds of men in this village and the next one, no one is good for you. Please, tell me, Queen Chioma, what type of man do you want? Chioma beamed, as if she had been waiting for this moment. Aha, mother, now you are talking. I want a man who is not too tall and not too short. Very, very handsome. His face must be well chiseled like that of a warrior. He must be wealthy in gold and cowries, wear the finest wrappers, and carry himself like a king. He must smell of expensive oils, be well-mannered, neat, and most importantly, he must worship the very ground I walk on. Ugoma stared at her daughter, shaking her head in disbelief. Chioma, all these qualities in one man. Do you think the gods fashioned the husband specifically for you? She sighed. The earlier you humble yourself, the better for you. A woman is like a flower. She blossoms, attracts butterflies, bees, insects, and then she withers. Do with this information whatever you will, my child. But Chioma only smiled, unbothered by her mother's words. She was certain that the perfect man existed, that she deserved nothing less. In fact, she had a particular young man in mind. A certain young man who belonged to another. On the other hand is Oluebube, the more reserved one. If Chioma was fire, then Oluebube was ice. Calm, gentle, and full of quiet grace. She was the apple of her parents' eyes. A beauty that did not demand attention, but was impossible to ignore. Unlike Chioma, who basked in admiration and enjoyed the thrill of rejecting men, Oluebube had little interest in such things. Her heart had already found its home in Oba, the one person who had been a part of her life for as long as she could remember. Oluebube and Oba had grown up together, their bond forming in childhood and deepening as the years passed. What started as innocent companionship, the kind where they chased each other through the fields, shared stolen fruits, climbed trees, and whispered secrets under the moonlight, blossomed into something stronger. Love. They dreamed of a future together, of standing before the elders to receive their parents' blessings, of building a home filled with laughter and children running around. But dreams were one thing, and reality was another. No matter how much they loved each other, there was one unshakable truth standing in their way: tradition. Like I said earlier, in Amiye, no younger sister could marry before her elder, no matter how long she waited, no matter how much she desired it. Oluebube knew this rule well, and it troubled her deeply. She tried to be patient, believing that Chioma would soon find a husband, and then nothing would stand in her way. But as days turned into months, and months stretched into seasons, Chioma remained unwilling to accept any suitor. At first, Oluebube thought her sister was simply being too proud and picky, turning down men because she believed no one was worthy of her beauty. But soon, something in her heart began to tell her that there was something more, but she could not place a finger on it. Oba, on his own part, was what you would call the most desirable young man in Amiye. He was tall, strong, and devastatingly handsome. The kind of man who made young maidens steal glances and whisper excitedly whenever he walked. He was also from a well-respected and wealthy family. Many maidens wished to call him their own, but everyone knew that Oba had eyes only for one person, Oluebube. He never failed to make it clear where his heart belonged. But among the maidens who admired Oba was one unexpected rival. Yes, you guessed correctly, Chioma herself. Chioma, the sister who had rejected every man in the village and beyond, had secretly set her sights on Oba. She was used to being the one all men wanted. But here was Oba, the most sought-after young man in Amiye, and he had chosen Oluebube instead of her. It stung. It was an insult she could not bear. Deep in her heart, Chioma nursed a growing bitterness towards her sister. It was bad enough that Oluebube had stolen the affection of their parents from her. Now, she had also stolen the most eligible man in the village. That she could not endure. Everyone thought that Chioma was merely being selective in choosing a husband. What no one knew was that her refusal was intentional. She knew that Oba had plans to marry Oluebube, but that would be only if she takes a husband first. As long as Chioma refused to marry, Oluebube would remain waiting. A full season passed, and still Chioma did not take a husband, and the next too passed. Oluebube became very worried and unhappy. She knew that she had to do something about it. She needed to reason with her mother. Maybe they could see and understand her plight. The evening breeze swept through the compound, carrying with it the scent of roasted yams from a distant hearth. The sky was painted in hues of deep orange and purple as Oluebube sat beside her mother, Ugoma, her heart heavy with worry. "Mother," she began hesitantly, her fingers twisting the edge of her wrapper. Ugoma, who had been sorting a basket of fresh vegetables, glanced at her daughter. "What is it, my child?" Oluebube took a deep breath. "It is Uba and me, mother. You know we have been in love since we were children, and now we have plans to become husband and wife, to build a home together. But time is passing, mother, and I am still here, waiting for Chioma to marry so that I can have my own happiness." Ugoma sighed and set the vegetables aside, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "Oluebube, you know our ways. It is an abomination for a younger sister to marry before her elder sister. Such a thing has never been heard of in Amiye." Oluebube's chest tightened. She had known what her mother's response would be, but it did not make hearing it any easier. "But mother," she pleaded, "Chioma has rejected all her suitors, every single one of them. What if she never finds a husband? Will I remain here waiting forever? Ugoma's face softened at the sight of her daughter's distress, but her voice remained firm. Chioma will find a suitor, my child. She's still young and beautiful. Men will come again, and she will choose one. You must be patient. Oluebube shook her head. What if she refuses all of them again? What if she does not want to marry at all? Must I sacrifice my own happiness for the rest of my life because of her? Ugoma placed a gentle but firm hand on Oluebube's shoulder. You speak out of frustration, but you must trust the gods. Chioma is still a woman, and a woman is meant for marriage. It may take time, but she will not remain in this house forever. Do not let impatience cloud your heart, Oluebube. Tears stung Oluebube's eyes. It was easy for her mother to say these things, to ask her to wait, to hope, to believe, but every day that passed felt like a punishment. Every time she saw Oba, she was reminded of the future they could have. Mother, she whispered, her voice trembling. What if I cannot wait anymore? Ugoma's eyes darkened. You will wait, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument, because it is the right thing to do, because our ancestors demand it, because I, your mother, say so. Oluebube lowered her head, biting her lip to keep the tears from falling. She had come seeking a solution, but all she had received was the same warning, the same command to wait. And so, with no other choice, she swallowed her pain and obeyed. After all, she was the obedient one. But deep in her heart, she knew she could not wait forever. The moment Oluebube left her mother's side, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and hurried toward the narrow path that led to Oba's compound. The sky had darkened, and the moon had taken its position up in the sky. But she did not care. She needed to see him immediately. By the time she reached his family's compound, Oba was outside, just about to have his evening meal. The moment he saw her face streaked with tears, he stood up immediately. Oluebube, what is wrong? He asked, concern lining his voice. She took a shaky breath, her chest rising and falling rapidly. It's my mother. I spoke to her, but I told her about us, about our dreams, and she told me the same thing I have always heard, that I must wait, that Chioma must marry first. Oba sighed heavily and pulled her into his arms, letting her rest her head on his chest. I feared as much, he murmured, stroking her back gently. Oluebube pulled away, her eyes glistening with desperation. Then, let's leave. Oba, let's run away together. Let's go to a place where no one knows us, where no one will tell us that we cannot be together, where no one will tell us what to do. For a moment, Oba was tempted. The thought of escaping with the woman he loved, of leaving behind traditions that stood in their way, was a sweet one. But reality settled on him just as quickly. He could not run. He was the first son, the one who controlled the family's fortune, the pillar on which his younger siblings and widowed mother depended. He took Oluebube's hands in his and gently shook his head. I cannot run, my love. My family needs me. My people need me. If I leave, I will be turning my back on everything I was born to protect. Oluebube's lips trembled. So, you are choosing them over me? No, Oba said softly, cupping her face in his hands. I am choosing us. I am choosing to wait for you no matter how long it takes. See, if I have to spend years waiting for the day you will finally be mine, then so be it. I would rather wait forever than live a life without you. A fresh wave of tears fell from Oluebube's eyes, But this time, they were not from sadness alone. They were from love, from the overwhelming depth of the bond they shared. She left Oba's compound feeling lighter, reassured by his words. But the moment she stepped into her father's compound and saw Chioma, all her peace vanished. Chioma was seated under the glow of an oil lamp, her delicate fingers running over her collection of coral beads, a small satisfied smile playing on her lips. She looked like a queen, polishing her crown, like a woman who had no care in the world, completely unbothered by the suffering she was causing. Something inside Olubi snapped. She stormed towards her sister, fists clenched at her sides. "Why, Chioma? Why are you doing this?" she demanded, her voice shaking with anger. Chioma glanced up at her, feigning surprise. "What are you talking about?" Olubi let out a bitter laugh. "Don't play dumb, Chioma. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You have rejected every single suitor that has come for your hand. You are keeping me trapped in this house while you sit here like a queen with no concern for anyone but yourself." Chioma placed her beads down, stood up and folded her arms across her chest, amusement flickering in her eyes. "Oh, little sister," she drawled, tilting her head. "You cannot have everything, you know. You were always the sweet, obedient one, the one our parents adored, the one who got whatever she wanted without lifting a finger. And now, for once, you are at my mercy." Olubi's breath caught in her throat. Chioma leaned forward, her smile sharp like the blade of a knife. "Now, you know that your happiness depends on me. If I were you, I would be nice and beg. Maybe if you kneel at my feet and plead and cry like a baby, I might consider choosing a husband." She shrugged. "Or maybe I won't. After all, by the time I decide to settle for one of the men who have been begging to have me, Oba will probably be long married with 1 or 2 children. I wonder what he even sees in you." Olubi felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath her feet. She had always suspected deep down that Chioma was delaying on purpose, but hearing it from her sister's own lips shattered her completely. Chioma was not just being selective, she was not just being proud, she was punishing her. Olubi stood there speechless, her heart pounding violently against her ribcage. She was now seeing her sister for who she truly was. And in that moment, one thing became painfully clear. Chioma had no intention of ever letting her be happy. That night, Olubi lay on her bed, staring up at the thatched roof of her hut, her body racked with silent sobs. She had cried until her throat burned, until her eyes were swollen and dry, but the pain in her chest refused to go away. The words Chioma had spoken haunted her, playing over and over in her mind. Meanwhile, in her own hut, Chioma lay wide awake, tossing and turning. She had succeeded in hurting Olubi, yes, but the pain she had inflicted on her sister was not enough. She did not just want to make her suffer, she wanted Oba for herself. Her fingers clenched around the beads she had been playing with earlier, her mind whirling. Oba had rejected her before, just like he had rejected all the other maidens. He had made it clear that his heart belonged to Olubi, yet she still wanted him. She knew it was impossible, except her eyes lit up. An idea had struck her. If somehow she could make Oba sleep with her, then he would be forced to marry her. He was an honorable man, the first son of his family. he would be forced to take responsibility for his actions. But that was a dangerous game. And more so, how on earth would she even get him to do something like that? She pondered over how to execute her plans, and before the evening of the next day, her dark mind already had it all figured out. But she would need some help. That evening, just as the last rays of sun faded into darkness, Chioma made her way to her best friend Ozioma's hut. Ozioma was the only person she trusted enough to share her secret with, her best friend from childhood. Ozioma welcomed her in, but the moment she saw the sly smile on Chioma's face, she frowned. "What are you up to this time, Chioma?" Chioma sat down and leaned in, lowering her voice. "I need your help with something." Ozioma crossed her arms. "What is it?" "See, I want to get Oba to marry me," she whispered. Ozioma looked at her surprised. "I know you have a thing for Oba, but is it that serious? You know he belongs to your sister." "And so what?" Chioma fired back. "They are not yet married and will not be, except I left them, which will never happen. Are you going to help me or not?" Ozioma hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, what is your plan?" Chioma smiled triumphantly. "Now you are talking. See, Oluebube usually carries palm wine to Oba in the evenings, yes?" Ozioma nodded. "Yes. He enjoys drinking it after his meal. Everyone knows that." "Good," Chioma said, her smile widening. "Here's what we'll do. I'll pour sleeping powder into the gourd of palm wine before Oluebube delivers it. Oba will drink it and fall into a deep sleep. When he has gone to bed, I will sneak into his hut and lie beside him." Ozioma's eyes widened. "Chioma, that is madness. And what if he wakes up before?" Chioma waved a hand, dismissing her. "He won't. I will make sure there's enough sleeping powder in the palm wine. Now, here is where you come in. The next morning, you will go to our house, act all nice, and tell Oluebube that you saw me sneaking into Oba's compound last night, and that it was not the first time you had seen it happen." Ozioma's mouth fell open. Chioma leaned closer, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "I know my sister. She will not rest until she finds out the truth for herself. And when she barges into Oba's room, she will find me there, completely undressed, beside him. What do you think will happen then?" Ozioma swallowed hard. She had always known Chioma to be cunning, but this was something else entirely. "Chioma, you are willing to go this far just to pain your sister?" she asked, still unable to believe what she had just heard. Chioma's smile vanished, and her eyes turned cold. "After all the times I have stood by you and had your back, Ozioma, are you really asking me that question? You can't do this one thing for me." Ozioma shifted uncomfortably, remembering all the times Chioma had stood by her and all the secrets they had shared together. She sighed and shook her head. "Fine, I will do it." Chioma smirked, satisfied. The plan was set. The trap was ready. Soon, Oluebube's world would come crashing down, and she couldn't wait to see the look on her sister's face when it happened. The next day, Chioma awoke with a sense of purpose. Today was the day. She moved through the compound with the grace of a queen, her heart beating with anticipation as the sun began its slow descent behind the towering palm trees. She watched from a distance as Oluebube made her way towards Oba's house, of course, with the gourd of palm wine, just as she always did. Chioma's lips curled into a wicked smile. Everything was already in motion. She had carefully poured the sleeping powder into the palm wine before Oluebube left the house. Her unsuspecting sister would be the one to deliver it with her own hands, and Oba, as expected, accepted it with gratitude. Now, all she had to do was wait. The sky turned a dusty shade of orange as Oba finished his evening meal. As usual, he took long, satisfying gulps of the palm wine to wash the meal down. He sighed in contentment, oblivious to the unseen hand of fate tightening around him. It did not take long before the sleeping powder took effect. His eyelids grew heavy, his body sluggish. He rubbed his forehead, assuming it was nothing more than exhaustion from the day's labor. Yawning, he stretched his arms and rose to his feet. He barely managed to make it into his hut before his body gave in. Stripping off his wrapper without a second thought, he collapsed onto his bed, his breathing deep and steady within moments. Chioma, hidden in the shadows with Ozioma, let out a slow breath of satisfaction. It was time. She turned to Ozioma, her eyes gleaming. "It's time for me to go in. Remember your part." Ozioma hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. "Chioma, are you sure?" "Shh." Chioma hushed her sharply. "I know what I'm doing." Without waiting for another word, she stepped forward, her movements calculated and deliberate. The night was quiet, save for the distant sounds of insects singing their lullaby. Chioma entered Oba's hut, the air thick with the scent of burning palm oil from his evening lamp. As she predicted, he was deep in sleep, sprawled across his bamboo bed, completely unaware of her presence. A slow, triumphant smile spread across her face. She reached for the knot of her wrapper, her fingers loosening it with ease, and then crawled into bed beside him, smiling to herself. "Tomorrow will be the best day of my life," she said to herself as she let sleep claim her. The morning air was still thick with the last whispers of night as Ozioma carefully stepped out of her father's compound the next morning. The village had not yet stirred, and the only sounds were the distant hoots of an owl and the rustling of palm fronds swayed by the cool breeze. She pulled her wrapper tighter around her as she made her way toward Oluebube's hut, her heart pounding in her chest. She hated what she was about to do, but she had no choice. Chioma had made that very clear. Reaching the small mud hut, she knocked softly on the wooden door. Inside, Oluebube lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her heart troubled by the events of the past days. Sleep had eluded her, replaced by an unshakable worry that gnawed at her spirit. So when the knock came, she frowned. Who would visit at such an early hour? Thinking it was her mother, slowly she rose and padded toward the door. As she unlatched it, the last person she expected to see stood before her, Ozioma, her sister's best friend. A look of confusion crossed her face. "You must be mistaken," she said, rubbing her tired eyes. "Chioma's hut is that way." She gestured in the direction of her sister's hut. Ozioma fidgeted, her fingers twisting the ends of her wrapper. "It's you I came to see, Oluebube," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Oluebube's frown deepened. "Me? Why?" Ozioma glanced around nervously before stepping closer. "There's something I need to tell you," she said urgently. "Something very important. It's about your sister." "My sister?" Oluebube asked, folding her arms. "What about her?" "See, Oluebube, I've carried this in my heart for so long, and I feel sorry for you. That's why I came here this early morning. Your sister, Chioma, and Oba have been seeing each other secretly. I've seen her go into his hut many times. Olubibi was shocked to her very core. She shook her head vehemently. It's not true. I don't believe you. Oba loves me and we are going to be a family very soon. He can never do such a thing. I know you and Chioma are just saying this to destroy our love, she said angrily. Fine, Ozioma said. I knew you would not believe me. That was why I waited for the right moment. See, as I speak with you now, your sister is in your man's bed. She spent the night there, and you can imagine the things that had happened behind those doors. Oluebube's heart skipped 1,000 beats. She moved without thinking. She ran as fast as her legs could carry her bare feet kicking up dust as she sped towards Uba's compound. She did not stop to catch her breath. She did not stop to think. She reached his hut, flung open the door, and her world shattered. There, lying together on the same bed, obviously naked, was Uba and her sister. A sharp cry tore from Oluebube's throat. Uba! Uba jolted awake, startled by the scream. Chioma, who had been pretending to be asleep, jumped up as well. Uba's eyes widened in horror as he looked down at himself, then at Chioma beside him. His entire body went cold. What are you doing here? He barked, his voice laced with panic. Chioma feigned confusion, stretching lazily, as if she had not just been caught in the most despicable act. What do you mean by that question? She asked, feigning innocence. When you were enjoying me last night, did you ask questions? Uba's face drained of color. What are you talking about, Chioma? His voice was a mixture of anger and fear. What is the meaning of this? What have you done? Chioma gave a slow, wicked smile. You can't stop pretending now, she said. She has seen it all. It was bound to come out eventually. Oluebube stood frozen, her heart shattered into a million pieces. She felt like she could not breathe. Her hand trembled as she clutched her wrapper tightly. She turned to Uba. So it's true. Tears streamed down her face. I thought you loved me. Uba opened his mouth to defend himself, but no words came. He could not explain what had happened. The agony in Oluebube's eyes was unbearable. Without another word, she turned and ran, her sobs echoing through the morning air. Oluebube, wait! Uba called, jumping onto his feet, but she did not stop. He took several steps forward, then another, but something in him told him that it was useless. He had probably lost her. Clenching his fist, he turned to go back into the room. To Chioma, his face twisted in fury. He needed answers. You, he growled. What did you do to me? But Chioma was gone, as if she had never been there at all. By this time, the day was brighter, and the commotion had drawn a few neighbors' attention. In no time, rumors would begin to fly around Amiye. Oluebube ran into her father's compound. Her legs were weak from running, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She barely noticed the neighbors who were watching with their eyes filled with curiosity. She stumbled forward and into her mother's waiting arms. Oluebube, what is it? Where are you coming from this early morning? Why are you crying? Ugoma asked, holding her daughter's trembling frame. The words stumbled out of Oluebube's lips between sobs, each one a dagger to her mother's heart. It's Chioma, Mama. She slept with Uba. Ugoma's eyes darkened with fury. What? Yes, Mother. I was in my hut this morning. Ozioma came to me. She said that Chioma and Uba had been seeing each other secretly. I did not believe her. Then she told me that Chioma was there in Uba's hut. Mama, I went there myself. When I got there, I saw my own sister, Chioma, fully undressed in Uba's bed. Chimo, Ugoma screamed, her eyes widening with shock. Just then, as though summoned by her own wickedness, Chioma strode into the compound. Unlike Oblubube, she looked completely unbothered, her shoulders squared, her chin lifted, her face set in an expression of bold defiance. Ugoma turned on her like a storm. Chioma, what have you done? Chioma scoffed. What have I done? She asked, feigning innocence. You knew that man belonged to your sister. Ugoma's voice was like a thunder. What kind of a person are you? Chioma folded her arms. I don't know why you people are seeing this thing like this. Eh? Did I tie him with a rope? Did I force him? Uba wanted me just like all the other men. He could not resist me, Mama. It's not my fault that her so-called man does not find her attractive. Ugoma's anger fled like fire. Without thinking, she raised her hands and her palm connected with Chioma's cheeks in a resounding slap that echoed across the compound. Chioma staggered, her hand flying to her face in shock, her ears ringing as if 1,000 bells were in there. You are a disgrace to yourself and this family, Ugoma spat. You have defiled yourself with a man that belongs to your sister. You are heartless, Chioma. You are very heartless, and you will reap the reward of this wicked seed that you have planted. Mark my words. Chioma said nothing. She simply turned and stomped into her hut, her cheek burning with the force of her mother's slaps, her ears still ringing. But when she was alone, a slow smile crept onto her lips. It was done. The village would be ablaze with gossip soon enough, and by evening, her father would summon Oba's family, and the elders would insist that he did the right thing, marry her. And when he did, he would see what he had been missing all along, and now nothing would stop him from loving her. Meanwhile, in her own hut, Olubebe was drowning in sorrow. She locked herself inside and refused to come out. She had not eaten, not drunk a single drop of water. Her body ached, but not as much as her heart. Not even her mother's words could reach her. She wished she could turn back time. She wished she had never gone to Oba's hut that morning. That night, when the village had fallen into silence and the moon bathed the land in silver light, a shadow moved towards her hut. Oba. He had waited all day, desperate to see her, but he knew better than to show up when the sun was still high. The village was still boiling with the scandal, and Olubebe's parents would not hesitate to skin him alive if they saw him. But he had to speak to her. He had to tell her the truth. Carefully, he slipped into her hut. She was still wide awake, sitting on the edge of her bamboo bed, her face illuminated by the dim glow of her oil lamp. When she saw him, she stood, her lips trembling. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then finally, Uba whispered, Oli. She said nothing, but the pain in her eyes made his heart break into a million pieces. He took a hesitant step closer. Believe me, Oli, I have never, ever touched your sister. All those were lies to tear us apart. I love you with all my heart. I would never do such a thing to you. Tears rolled down Olubebe's cheeks. I don't know what to believe, Uba. I saw you. I saw both of you undressed in your bed. How can you explain that? I know exactly how it looked, he admitted, his voice desperate. But I swear to the gods, I swear to you, I don't know how it happened. You know me, Oli. You know I am not that kind of man. She shook her head, fresh tears spilling from her eyes. I swear on my father's grave, he continued, I will never do a thing like that to you. If I have to take an oath before Ogugu to prove my innocence, I will. Oluebube searched his face. She knew Uba. She knew his heart. She had loved him for as long as she could remember. They had been best friends since childhood, and deep inside, she knew he was telling the truth. Chioma had always wanted what she had. Chioma had always wanted to hurt her. And yet, even if she forgave him, what about the villagers? How will they explain this to them? What about her parents? What the both of them did not know was that inside the privacy of their own hearts, Ugoma and Mazi Okonkwo had already made a decision. Oba would do the right thing. He would have to marry Chioma. The next morning, as the village stirred awake, a heavy tension filled the air. The elders, including Mazi Okonkwo, sat in a semicircle under the great Odara tree in the village square. Their faces were solemn, their expressions unreadable. The news of Uba and Chioma's supposed affair had spread like wildfire, and now the council of elders had to decide what to do. Uba stood before them, his heart pounding in his chest. He had spent the entire night replaying the events, searching for an answer, for a way to prove his innocence. But now, as he faced the elders, he could already see the conclusion they had drawn. Mazi Okonkwo cleared his throat. Uba, you are a respected young man in this village, but what has happened cannot be ignored. You must do the right thing. You must marry Chioma. I will not, Uba said firmly. Gasps rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. No man had ever dared to outrightly reject the verdict of the elders. One of the oldest men, Nze Ugonna, narrowed his eyes at Uba. You were found with her in your bed. Both of you, unclothed. Do you take us for fools? I swear on my father's grave, I do not know how she got there, Uba pleaded. I have never touched her. Someone must have orchestrated this whole thing. This is all a setup. Another elder, Maz Ifeanyi, shook his head. These are empty words, my son. The evidence is glaring. How can you explain what everyone saw? Oba clenched his fists. I will do whatever it takes to prove my innocence. Tomorrow, I will stand before Ogugu and swear an oath. There is nothing left to prove. You must take responsibility for what you have done to my daughter, Mazi Okonkwo said firmly. But Uba set his jaw and looked each of the elders in the eyes. I will never marry Chioma. It will be a cold day in hell before I do. Words traveled fast. By the time Oluebube heard of the elders' verdict, she felt as though the world had collapsed around her. She sat on the floor of her hut, her head buried in her hands, the weight of sorrow pressing down on her chest. Her heart was shattered beyond repair. Just then, her door opened and Uba stepped in. She rushed to him, gripped his hands. Uba, tell me it's not true. Tell me you did not agree to marry her. He cupped her face, wiping the tears from her cheeks. I would rather die than have her as my wife. Fresh tears welled in Oluebube's eyes. What do we do now? They won't listen to us. I know, my love. I will take an oath before Ogugu tomorrow. Oluebube's heart stopped. She pulled back slightly, shaking her head. No. Uba, no. I trust you. I really do. But what if you did it without knowing? What if something happened while you were asleep? I don't want you to die. You can marry my sister if you have to. But if something happened to you, I don't know if I can survive it. Oba grabbed her hands. Over my dead body. Olubebe, over my dead body will I marry her. I swear to you, my love, I did not touch Chioma. I would rather die than have her as my wife. Meanwhile, inside her own hut, Chioma sat on the floor, staring at the wall. Her confidence from the previous day had vanished like smoke in the wind. This was not how it was supposed to go. Oba was supposed to accept his fate, marry her, and in time, grow to love her. But he had outrightly refused to marry her. He was willing to take an oath before Ogogo to prove his innocence. She did not see this coming. Chioma swallowed hard. She had seen what happened to people who lied before the gods. They did not live to tell the tale. If Oba went through with this, it was over for her. She would be exposed, and everything she had fought for, every plan she had carefully set in motion, would all crumble before her very eyes. She needed a new plan, but no matter how long she thought, no idea came. She sat awake all night, her mind spinning, searching for a way out, but nothing at all came to mind. The morning came very fast, casting long shadows across the village square as people gathered in front of the shrine of Ogugu. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made even the birds hesitate to sing. The entire village had turned up, their faces alight with anticipation. Some were here out of curiosity, others in fear, but all of them understood the weight of what was about to happen. Oba stood tall before the shrine, his face set like stone, his heart unshaken. He was ready. His mother, however, was not. She had clung to his arms earlier that day, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded one last time, "My son, please, I beg you, don't do this. There must be another way." But Oba had gently removed her hands and shook his head. "There is no way, mother. I must clear my name." And as he stood before the chief priest that day, he was willing to do whatever it takes to prove his innocence. The chief priest, an old man with piercing eyes and the body covered in sacred chalk, stepped forward, holding a carved wooden staff adorned with cowrie shells. "Step forth, Oba, and swear before Ogugu that you did not have carnal knowledge of Chioma." Oba took a deep breath and moved forward. The crowd fell silent. Among them stood Ozioma, her entire body trembling. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat, her palms sweating as she gripped the edges of her wrapper. She had known fear before, but never like this. Oba was innocent, and if he swore before Ogugu, the gods would strike down anyone who falsely accused him. He would leave, but she would not. Neither would Chioma. She stole a glance at her best friend, who stood at the edge of the gathering, watching with wide, fearful eyes. Chioma's hands were clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms, as if willing the moment to go away. Oba reached out his hands, ready to take the sacred offer, the staff of truth. And at that moment, something inside Ozioma snapped. Before she could think, she ran forward, pushing through the crowd. "Stop! Stop!" she shouted as she moved forward. Gasps erupted as people turned, watching in shock, as Ozioma fell to her knees before the elders, her breath coming in ragged sobs. Oba froze, his hand inches from the offer. "What is the meaning of this?" Mazio Comfort bellowed. "I'll confess," Ozioma cried. "I'll confess. He's innocent." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Shock spread like wildfire. Chioma's face drained of color. "Ozioma," she hissed under her breath, panic clawing at her throat. But Ozioma had gone too far to stop. It was Chioma's idea, she shouted. She planned everything. She put the sleeping powder in his drink. She waited until he was unconscious and then sneaked into his bed. She made me lie to Oluebube. It was all a lie. There was silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. The village stood frozen. Then all at once, the crowd erupted in gasps and murmurs. Disbelief filled their eyes as they turned to Chioma. Ugoma staggered back, clutching her chest. Chioma! Her voice barely above a whisper, heavy with shame. Tell me this is a lie. But Chioma could not speak. Chioma's lips trembled, but no words came out. She stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing for an escape, but there was none. The villagers stared at her in horror, some shaking their heads, others muttering in disgust. You deceived us, one of the elders thundered. You lied against an innocent man and tried to ruin your own sister's happiness. What kind of a person are you? Ugoma's knees buckled and she collapsed to the ground, weeping bitterly. Chioma, how could you do this? How could you be so heartless? She sobbed. How could you do this to your own sister, your own flesh and blood? Even Chioma's father, Mazio Okonkwo, a man known for his patience, could not hold back his fury. You have disgraced this family, Chioma. You have brought shame upon us. Chioma turned desperately to Ozioma, as if willing her friend to take it all back. But Ozioma avoided her gaze. I only wanted what was mine, Chioma finally whispered, her voice barely audible. I was always second to Oluebube. I just wanted to be loved too. But her words carried no weight. Mazio Okonkwo, his face dark with shame, stepped forward. Chioma, from today, you cease to be my daughter. From this day forward, you are banished from my house. Sophia! He spat. You are a disgrace to this family and to this entire community. Gasps ran through the crowd. Chioma screamed, Father, please! You are lucky. You are not being cast out of the village entirely, another elder backed. If Oba had taken that oath, you could have died and put your friend in danger too. At that, Oba stepped forward, his face unreadable. He had not spoken all this time, but now his voice was calm and firm and had only one concern. Please, my elders, I do not wish for any more suffering, he said. What has been done cannot be undone. I only ask now that I be allowed to marry the woman that I love, Oluebube. The chief priest nodded. Then let it be so. A loud cheer erupted from the villagers. Oluebube, who had been weeping silently, looked up in shock. Her eyes met Oba's, and in that moment, she knew, despite all the pain, despite everything, their love had survived. Chioma, still on her knees, watched as Oba walked towards Oluebube and pulled her into his arms. She could not believe it. She had lost everything. Tears of regret streamed down her face. With the truth exposed and justice served, Oba and Oluebube were allowed to become married, and her parents blessed their union wholeheartedly. And from that experience, the tradition that required an elder sibling to marry before the younger was officially abolished. It had caused nothing but pain and unnecessary delays. And from that day forward, love and destiny would determine marriages. The entire village celebrated Oba and Oluebube's union with joy, feasting and dancing that lasted for days. Meanwhile, Chioma could not bear the shame. Everywhere she went, villagers whispered and pointed at her. She had not only lost her family's respect, but also any chance of marriage in Amiye. She had become a disgrace. One night, under the cover of darkness, she packed her few belongings and left. No one knew where she went, and no one searched for her. She disappeared from Amiye to a place where no one knew her. As for Oba and Oluebube, years passed, and with their past behind them, they lived together in peace and unity with their children, just as they had always dreamed of, happily ever in love. Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button. And to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who would enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Let's know what you have learned from this story. Remember to like, share, drop a comment and subscribe. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.